The Galactic Council had very strict rules about the planet Kythera. No ships were allowed within 3 light years of its surface. No probes could be sent. No communications could be attempted. The orange warning beacons floating in space around the system said it all. Extreme danger. Apex predator world. Approach forbidden. Every species in the known galaxy agreed on this rule. The Zentorians, who conquered planets for breakfast, wouldn't go near Kythera. The Vectar, who hunted dangerous creatures for sport, considered it suicide. Even the mechanical synthoids, who feared nothing living, had calculated the risk as impossibly high. But humans had never been very good at following rules. Captain Sarah Chen of the cargo ship Lucky Break stared at her fuel gauge with growing panic. The gauge showed red across the board. Her ship was running on emergency power, and they were still 2 days from the nearest refueling station. Her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, sat in the co-pilot seat, drawing pictures in her notebook, completely unaware of their danger. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Maya asked, looking up from her drawing of a purple dragon with too many teeth. Sarah forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. We just need to make a quick stop." Sarah had been a cargo runner for 12 years, ever since Maya's father died in a mining accident. She knew every legal refueling station, every black market dealer, and every shortcut in this sector of space. But right now, none of that knowledge helped her. The nearest station was too far away. Her ship would die in space before they reached it, except for one possibility. Sarah pulled up the navigation charts and found what she was looking for. Kythera. The Forbidden World was only 6 hours away. According to her old star charts, there had been a small mining operation there 20 years ago, before the planet was declared off-limits. The mining station might still have fuel reserves. "It's probably fine," Sarah whispered to herself. "Whatever's down there, we'll just grab some fuel and leave. In and out, quick and quiet." She didn't believe her own words, but she didn't have a choice. Maya needed to survive, even if Sarah didn't. The ship shuddered as Sarah engaged the engines and changed course toward Kythera. The fuel gauge dropped another notch. They would make it to the planet, but there would be no fuel left for takeoff unless they found some on the surface. "Mom, where are we going?" Maya asked. "A planet called Kythera. We need to find fuel." Maya nodded and went back to her drawing. Children had an amazing ability to trust their parents completely, even when those parents were making terrible decisions. 6 hours later, Kythera filled their view screen. It was a beautiful world of deep green forests, crystal blue oceans, and white mountain peaks. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. Sarah had seen 1,000 worlds just like it. But as they entered the atmosphere, Sarah's sensors picked up something wrong. The readings showed massive life forms moving through the forests, not just big, enormous. Some of the signatures were over 100 meters long, and they were fast, much faster than anything that size should be able to move. "Automated emergency beacon detected," the ship's computer announced. "Signal coming from coordinates 47.2 north, 118.7 west. Sarah checked her maps. The coordinates matched the location of the old mining station. Someone was still alive down there. The Lucky Break descended through thick clouds toward the surface. Sarah could see the mining station now, a collection of metal buildings surrounded by a high wall. But the wall was broken in several places, and strange plants had grown over most of the structures. As they got closer, Sarah saw something that made her blood freeze. Massive claw marks covered the walls of the station. Whatever had made those marks was bigger than her ship. The emergency beacon was coming from a small building in the center of the station. Sarah landed the ship in what used to be the main courtyard and powered down the engines. The fuel gauge showed completely empty. "Maya, I want you to stay here," Sarah said, checking her sidearm. "Lock the doors and don't open them for anyone except me." "But I want to come with you," Maya said. "Not this time, baby. This place might be dangerous." Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead and stepped out of the ship. The air on Cathara was thick and humid, filled with strange smells she couldn't identify. Everything was too quiet. On a world this green, there should be birds singing, insects buzzing, something making noise. But the forest around the station was completely silent. Sarah reached the building where the emergency beacon was transmitting. The door had been torn off its hinges. Inside, she found an old man sitting at a communication console. He was thin and wild-looking, with gray hair down to his shoulders and clothes that had seen better decades. "You shouldn't have come here," the old man said without turning around. "This world will kill you." "I'm Captain Chen. My ship is out of fuel. Do you have any reserves?" The old man laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Fuel? Yes, we have fuel. Enough to power a fleet. But you'll never live to use it." "What are you talking about? What's down here?" The old man finally turned to face her. His eyes were haunted, like someone who had seen too much horror. "My name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I was part of the original research team here 20 years ago. We came to study the ecosystem. We thought we were the top of the food chain." "What happened to your team?" "Eaten. All of them. By the shadows." "Shadows?" Dr. Webb pointed to a wall covered with photographs and research notes. Sarah stepped closer and felt her stomach drop. The pictures showed creatures that looked like nightmares. They had the basic shape of big cats, but they were the size of buildings. Their fur was pure black and seemed to absorb light. Their eyes glowed like red stars, and their mouths were filled with teeth as long as swords. "We called them shadow stalkers," Dr. Webb explained. "They're the perfect predator. Faster than anything should be, stronger than a starship, smart enough to set traps, and completely invisible when they don't want to be seen." "How did you survive?" "I didn't. Not really. I've been hiding in this station for 20 years, living off emergency supplies and rainwater. The shadows know I'm here, but they don't see me as a threat. I'm just a scared old man who never leaves his hole." Sarah felt panic rising in her chest. "How many of them are there?" "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. This whole planet belongs to them. And now that you've landed here, they know about you too." As if summoned by his words, a low growling sound echoed through the forest around them. It was deep and rumbling, like the sound of a starship engine, but somehow alive and hungry. "They're coming," Dr. Webb whispered. "You need to get back to your ship. Maybe if you leave right now." "I can't. We're out of fuel." The growling got louder. Now there were multiple voices joining in, creating a chorus of hunger that made Sarah's bones vibrate. "Then you're dead," Dr. Webb said, "and so is everyone with you." Sarah's heart stopped. "My daughter is on the ship." She ran from the building, sprinting across the broken courtyard toward her ship. Behind her, Dr. Webb was shouting something, but she couldn't hear him over the sound of her own heartbeat. The growling was getting closer. Sarah could hear massive footsteps pounding through the forest. Trees were snapping like twigs. Something huge was moving toward the station, and it wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. Sarah reached her ship and hammered on the door. "Maya, open up! We need to go!" The door slid open, and Maya looked up at her mother with worried eyes. "Mom, what's that noise?" Before Sarah could answer, the forest around them exploded. A shadow stalker burst from the tree line like a black meteor. It was even bigger than Dr. Webb's photographs had suggested, easily 40 meters long from nose to tail. Its fur didn't just look black, it seemed to eat the light around it, creating a hole in reality where the creature stood. Its red eyes burned like dying stars as they focused on Sarah's ship. Sarah grabbed Maya and pulled her away from the door, but there was nowhere to run. The courtyard was surrounded by broken walls, and the forest beyond was full of more growling voices. The shadow stalker approached slowly, enjoying the hunt. Its massive paws made no sound on the metal ground. It moved like liquid darkness, flowing rather than walking. When it opened its mouth, Sarah could see rows of teeth that gleamed like polished metal. But then something impossible happened. Maya stepped in front of her mother. The 8-year-old girl walked toward the most dangerous predator in the galaxy with no fear in her face. She held her notebook in her hands like it was a shield. "Maya, no!" Sarah screamed. But Maya didn't stop. She walked right up to the Shadow Stalker and held up her notebook, showing the creature her drawing of the purple dragon. "I drew you," Maya said in her small, clear voice. "But I made you purple instead of black. Do you like it?" The Shadow Stalker stopped moving. Its burning red eyes stared down at the tiny human child who was standing close enough to touch its massive paws. The creature tilted its head to one side like a confused house cat. For a moment that lasted forever. The most dangerous predator in the galaxy and a small human girl looked at each other in complete silence. Then the Shadow Stalker did something that Dr. Webb later said was impossible. It lay down. The massive creature lowered itself to the ground, bringing its huge head down to Maya's level. It sniffed at her notebook with nostrils the size of dinner plates. Maya giggled. "That tickles." She reached out and touched the creature's nose. The Shadow Stalker's eyes stopped glowing red. Instead, they began to shine with a soft blue light that somehow looked friendly. Sarah stood frozen, unable to believe what she was seeing. Her 8-year-old daughter was petting the deadliest predator in the galaxy, and the creature was letting her do it. More Shadow Stalkers emerged from the forest, but they didn't attack. They watched from a distance, their red eyes curious rather than hungry. "Mom, look!" Maya called out. "He likes my drawing!" The Shadow Stalker had wrapped one massive paw around Maya's notebook, holding it gently. It was studying her purple dragon drawing with the intensity of an art critic. Dr. Webb stumbled out of his building, staring at the scene in complete shock. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They don't do this. They kill everything. They always kill everything." But Maya was already climbing onto the Shadow Stalker's head, using its ears like handholds. The creature remained perfectly still, letting the small human child explore. "What's your name?" Maya asked the Shadow Stalker. The creature made a sound unlike its earlier growling. It was almost musical, like wind chimes made of starlight. "I'll call you Midnight," Maya declared, "because you're beautiful like the night sky." The Shadow Stalker, Midnight, made the musical sound again. This time, it sounded pleased. Sarah slowly approached her daughter and the impossible new friendship she had just witnessed. "Maya, we need to be very careful." "It's okay, Mom. Midnight won't hurt us. He told me." "He told you?" Maya nodded seriously. "Not with words, with feelings. He's been lonely for a very long time. They all have. They just wanted someone to talk to." Dr. Webb was still staring in amazement. 20 years, he muttered. 20 years I've been hiding from them, and all I had to do was say hello. As if to prove Maya's point, several more Shadow Stalkers approached the group. They moved carefully, watching Maya for her reaction. When she smiled and waved at them, their eyes changed from red to blue. "We still need fuel," Sarah said, though she felt foolish worrying about practical things when her daughter was apparently having a conversation with apex predators. Midnight made his musical sound and stood up, with Maya still sitting on his head. The massive creature began walking toward the mining station's fuel depot. "I think he wants to help," Maya called down to her mother. Dr. Webb shook his head in wonder. "The fuel depot has been sealed for 20 years. We'll need heavy equipment to break it open." Midnight approached the sealed fuel depot and examined the heavy metal doors. Then he opened his mouth and breathed a stream of glowing plasma that cut through the metal like it was paper. "Or we could use a Shadow Stalker," Dr. Webb said faintly. Inside the depot, they found enough fuel to power a dozen ships. As Dr. Webb began connecting transfer hoses to Sarah's ship. Maya continued to make friends with the other shadow stalkers. Soon she had a dozen of the massive creatures sitting around her in a circle, all listening as she told them stories from her notebook. "This changes everything," Dr. Webb said as he worked. "If the shadow stalkers can be communicated with, if they're intelligent rather than just predatory, then this planet doesn't need to be forbidden anymore." Sarah watched her daughter teaching a creature the size of a building how to play pat-a-cake and wondered what other assumptions the galaxy had gotten wrong about things they didn't understand. But as the sun began to set over Kithara, Sarah noticed that not all the shadow stalkers were joining Maya's peaceful gathering. Some stayed in the forest, watching from a distance. And their eyes remained red rather than blue. Maya noticed them too. "Some of them are still scared," she told her mother. "They've been hurt before by people who didn't try to be friends." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. If some shadow stalkers had learned to fear and hate visitors to their world, there might be good reasons for that fear. "Maya, we should probably leave soon," Sarah said. But Maya shook her head. "We can't leave yet, Mom. Midnight needs our help." "Help with what?" Maya pointed to the red-eyed shadow stalkers lurking at the edge of the forest. "There's something wrong with his family, something that happened a long time ago. He wants me to help fix it." Sarah looked at Dr. Webb, who had gone pale. "What aren't you telling us?" she asked him. The old scientist looked away. "The research team didn't just come here to study the ecosystem. We came to capture shadow stalkers. The Galactic Council wanted to weaponize them, turn them into biological weapons." "What happened?" "We succeeded. We captured some juveniles and began experimenting on them. We tried to make them more aggressive, more obedient. The experiments drove them insane." Maya's face filled with sadness. "The angry ones are the ones you hurt." Dr. Webb nodded. "When the adult shadow stalkers found out what we had done to their young, they attacked our facility. Most of the team was killed. I escaped, but the damaged juveniles escaped too. They've been in the forest ever since, too traumatized to rejoin their pack, too aggressive to be reasoned with." Sarah understood now why some shadow stalkers remained hostile. They had every right to hate humans. "Can they be helped?" Sarah asked. Maya looked at Midnight, and somehow the massive creature communicated his answer. "Midnight says maybe, but it's dangerous. The hurt ones don't remember how to trust anyone." Sarah wanted to tell her daughter that this wasn't their problem, that they should take their fuel and leave this world behind, but looking at Maya's determined face, she realized her 8-year-old daughter wasn't going to abandon her new friends. "What do you need us to do?" Sarah asked. Maya smiled and hugged Midnight's massive head. "We need to show the scared ones that not all humans are bad, but first, we need to find them." As night fell over Kithara, Sarah realized their simple fuel stop had become something much more complicated. Her daughter was planning to heal the psychological wounds of creatures that could tear apart starships with their bare claws. But looking at the peaceful gathering of shadow stalkers around Maya, all of them listening to her stories with the patient attention of ancient wise beings, Sarah began to think her daughter might actually succeed. After all, humans had never been very good at following rules. But they had always been excellent at making friends with things that were supposed to be impossible to befriend. In the distance, a lonely howl echoed through the forest. It was the sound of pain that had lasted 20 years, finally asking for help. The haunting cry in the distance made every friendly shadow stalker around Maya freeze. Their blue eyes dimmed with sadness, and they made low, mournful sounds that seemed to shake the ground. "That's one of the hurt ones," Maya said softly, still sitting on Midnight's head. "He's calling for his family, but they can't answer him." Dr. Webb stepped closer to Sarah. "We should leave. Now. Before the damaged ones catch our scent. They're not like these peaceful ones. The experiments made them unpredictable and extremely violent." Sarah looked at her daughter, who was gently stroking Midnight's massive ear. "Maya, Dr. Webb is right. This is too dangerous. Mom, what if I was hurt and scared and alone in the dark? Maya asked. Wouldn't you want someone to help me? Before Sarah could answer, Midnight stood up and began walking toward the forest. Maya held on tightly as the massive creature carried her into the darkness between the trees. Maya! Sarah ran after them, followed by Dr. Webb and 3 other shadow stalkers who had befriended the little girl. The forest was alien and beautiful. Glowing flowers provided soft light along the path, and the trees were so massive that their trunks could have hidden Sarah's ship. But Sarah barely noticed the beauty. She was focused on keeping up with her daughter, who was riding a predator the size of a building into unknown danger. Midnight moved carefully through the forest, avoiding fallen logs and low-hanging branches that might knock Maya from her perch. The other shadow stalkers spread out around them, creating a protective formation. How does she do it? Dr. Webb panted as he struggled to keep pace. I've studied animal behavior for 30 years and I've never seen anything like this. These creatures should be impossible to domesticate. Maya has always been good with animals, Sarah replied, though she knew this was different. Her daughter wasn't just good with animals. She was communicating with beings that might be more intelligent than humans. They had been walking for 20 minutes when Midnight suddenly stopped. The massive creature crouched low, and Maya slid down to the ground. He says we have to walk from here, Maya whispered. The scared ones might hurt Midnight if they think he's bringing enemies. Sarah wanted to argue, but the other shadow stalkers were also crouching down, letting their riders dismount. Whatever they were approaching required extreme caution. Maya took her mother's hand and began walking deeper into the forest. Dr. Webb followed behind them, muttering prayers in 3 different languages. The trees began to thin out as they approached a clearing. Sarah could see strange structures ahead, tall metal poles topped with blinking lights. They looked like the sensor arrays from the mining station, but these had been bent and twisted into impossible shapes. The damaged ones did that, Dr. Webb explained quietly. They've been building things for 20 years. We never understood why. As they got closer, Sarah realized the twisted metal structures formed a pattern. They weren't random at all. They looked almost like art. It's beautiful, Maya said, and Sarah was surprised to find herself agreeing. The metal sculptures created a maze-like path through the clearing. Some reached toward the sky like frozen dancers, while others curved back on themselves in complex spirals. They hummed softly in the wind, creating an otherworldly music. But the sculptures weren't empty. Moving between them were shadow stalkers, unlike the ones they had met at the mining station. These creatures were larger, and their fur seemed to shift and flow like liquid shadow. Most disturbing were their eyes. They glowed not red or blue, but a sickly yellow that pulsed with pain. The experiments changed them, Dr. Webb whispered. Made them bigger, stronger, but also drove them mad. They can't control their shape-shifting abilities anymore. Sarah counted at least a dozen of the damaged creatures moving through their metal garden. Each one was unique. Some had too many legs, others had faces that constantly shifted between different expressions. They had once been the same species as Midnight, but now they looked like living nightmares. Maya, we should go back, Sarah said. But Maya was already walking into the clearing. Maya, no! Sarah ran after her daughter, but one of the damaged shadow stalkers had already spotted them. The creature's yellow eyes locked onto Maya, and it began moving toward her with predatory grace. This shadow stalker was even larger than Midnight, and its form constantly shifted as it moved. Sometimes it had wings, sometimes extra arms, sometimes a tail that split into multiple parts. The experimental modifications had left it unable to maintain a stable shape. Dr. Webb grabbed Sarah's arm. Don't run! Fast movement triggers their hunting instincts. The damaged creature approached Maya slowly. its yellow eyes studying her with an intelligence that was clearly suffering. When it was close enough to touch her, it stopped and tilted its constantly shifting head. Maya looked up at the creature without fear. "You're in pain?" she said simply. The shadow stalker made a sound unlike anything Sarah had heard before. It was part growl, part scream, and part sob. The creature's shape flickered more rapidly, as if Maya's words had triggered an emotional response it couldn't control. "They did bad things to you," Maya continued. "I'm sorry." More damaged creatures began emerging from between the metal sculptures. Soon Maya was surrounded by a dozen shape-shifting predators, each one larger and more unstable than the last. Sarah wanted to grab her daughter and run, but she knew it was too late. Any sudden movement would trigger an attack that would kill them all. One of the creatures, this one with too many eyes that blinked in patterns, reached out with a shifting appendage and gently touched Maya's hair. Maya smiled. "You remember being little, don't you? Before the bad people hurt you?" The creature with many eyes made a sound that was almost like purring. Its shape stabilized slightly, becoming more like a normal shadow stalker. "Maya," Dr. Webb said carefully, "ask them what they need." Maya closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to something only she could hear. When she opened them again, tears were streaming down her face. "They can't sleep," she said. "The experiments put bad dreams in their heads that never stop. They've been awake for 20 years. Sarah felt her heart break for these tortured creatures. "Is there anything we can do?" Maya wiped her eyes and looked around at the damaged shadow stalkers. "They built this place to try to make the dreams go away. The music from the metal helps a little, but it's not enough." Sarah noticed for the first time that the wind through the twisted sculptures created complex harmonies. The damaged creatures had been building a massive musical instrument to soothe their own suffering. "What do they need to sleep?" Dr. Webb asked. Maya was quiet for a long moment, communicating with the creatures in ways that seemed to bypass normal language. Finally, she spoke. "They need to forgive themselves." "Forgive themselves for what?" "For being changed, for becoming scary, for not being able to go home to their families." Sarah understood. The damaged creatures weren't just physically altered, they were emotionally traumatized. They blamed themselves for what had been done to them. One of the larger damaged creatures approached Dr. Webb. Its shape was more stable than the others, and its yellow eyes held a terrible intelligence. Dr. Webb stepped backward, but the creature followed him. When it was close enough, it spoke. The words came out distorted, filtered through vocal cords that had been surgically modified, but they were clearly recognizable as human language. "You were there." Dr. Webb went pale. "Oh, God. You're one of the juveniles we experimented on." The creature nodded slowly. "You taught me words before the pain." Sarah realized this shadow stalker had been just a child when the experiments began. Dr. Webb had probably tried to befriend it before the other scientists began their torture. "I'm sorry," Dr. Webb said, tears streaming down his face. "I tried to stop them. When I realized what they were doing, I tried to stop them." The damaged creature studied the old scientist for a long moment. Then it did something unexpected. It lay down and rested its massive shifting head in Dr. Webb's lap. "Forgive me," the creature said, "for being monster." "You're not a monster," Dr. Webb said, stroking the creature's unstable fur. "You're a victim. What they did to you was wrong." Maya walked over to the two of them and sat down beside the damaged shadow stalker. "What's your name?" she asked. The creature's shape flickered as it tried to remember. "Before pain was called Symphony." "That's a beautiful name," Maya said. "Symphony, would you like to hear a story?" Symphony's yellow eyes flickered with something that might have been hope. Maya began telling the story of a little dragon who got lost in a big forest. But this wasn't just any story. It was specifically crafted for her audience. The dragon in Maya's tale was different from other dragons, changed by magic that made him frightening to look at. He believed he could never go home because his family wouldn't recognize him. As Maya spoke, more damaged creatures gathered around her. They listened with the same intense attention as their healthy cousins, but their forms gradually began to stabilize. The constant shifting slowed down as they focused on the story. But the most amazing thing was what happened to their eyes. The sickly yellow glow began to fade, replaced by a soft purple light that Sarah had never seen before. Dr. Webb noticed it too. "Purple," he whispered. "I think purple means they're healing." Maya continued her story. The lost dragon in her tale found friends who accepted him despite his changed appearance. They helped him realize that being different didn't make him dangerous, and that his family had never stopped loving him. As the story progressed, something magical happened in the clearing. The damaged shadow stalkers began to sing. It started with Symphony humming along to Maya's words. Soon others joined in, their voices blending with the music of their metal sculptures. The harmony they created was unlike anything Sarah had ever heard, beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. But the most incredible moment came when the healthy shadow stalkers arrived. Midnight and the others had been waiting at the edge of the clearing, afraid to approach their damaged family members. But when they heard the singing, they couldn't stay away. Slowly, carefully, the healthy shadow stalkers entered the clearing. Their eyes were blue with friendship as they approached their injured relatives. For 20 years, the two groups had been separated by fear and misunderstanding. The healthy ones were afraid of their damaged family members, and the damaged ones were ashamed of what they had become. But Maya's story had reminded them of something important. They were still family. Symphony was the first to approach his healthy relatives. His shape had stabilized into something close to normal, though he remained larger and bore scars from his torment. When Midnight saw him, the two massive creatures touched noses in greeting. More reunions followed. Brothers and sisters who hadn't seen each other for decades embraced with careful tenderness. Parents were reunited with children they thought they had lost forever. Maya watched the reunions with satisfaction, but Sarah noticed her daughter was getting tired. The effort of communicating with so many traumatized minds was draining her. "Maya, maybe we should rest," Sarah suggested. But Maya shook her head. "Not yet, Mom. There's one more who needs help." She pointed to the edge of the clearing, where a single damaged creature remained alone. This one was smaller than the others, and its shape shifted constantly between different forms. Its eyes glowed the darkest yellow Sarah had seen. "That's Echo," Symphony explained in his distorted voice. "She was youngest. Experiments hurt her most." Maya approached Echo carefully. The small creature backed away, clearly terrified of contact. "Echo," Maya said softly, "I know you're scared, but you're safe now." Echo made a sound like broken glass and shifted into a form with no eyes at all, as if she were trying to hide from the world. Maya sat down a few feet away and began to sing. It was a lullaby Sarah had sung to her when she was little, but Maya added new words about forgiveness and healing and finding your way home. Slowly, Echo began to shift back into a more recognizable form. She was beautiful, with silver fur that sparkled like starlight, but her eyes remained yellow with pain. "The bad dreams are strongest in her," Maya explained to Sarah. "She can't tell the difference between the past and now." "What can we do?" Maya thought for a moment, then opened her notebook and began drawing. She drew Echo as she was now, beautiful and silver and surrounded by friends. Then she drew Echo as she could be, happy and healthy and loved. When Maya showed Echo the drawings, the little creature's yellow eyes began to change. First they became purple, then gradually shifted to a soft silver that matched her fur. Echo approached Maya cautiously and touched the drawing with one delicate paw. For the first time in 20 years, she made a sound that wasn't filled with pain. She spoke one word, clear and beautiful. Home. Maya smiled and hugged Echo gently. Yes, you're home. As the night wore on, the clearing filled with the sounds of healing. The damaged shadow stalkers shared their stories with their healthy family members, supported by Maya's presence and gentle encouragement. Sarah watched her 8-year-old daughter facilitate therapy sessions between creatures that could level cities and wondered how her child had learned to heal souls. But as dawn approached, Sarah noticed something troubling. Maya was getting weaker. The effort of helping so many traumatized minds was taking a toll on her small human brain. Maya, you need to rest, Sarah said firmly. Just a little longer, Mom. They're almost healed. But Maya's eyes were losing focus, and she was swaying with exhaustion. Dr. Webb noticed too. Sarah's right. Human minds aren't designed for this kind of sustained telepathic contact. Maya could suffer permanent damage if she continues. Maya looked around at the shadow stalkers, who were still sharing their pain and slowly healing. But they need me. Symphony approached Maya and gently nuzzled her with his massive head. You have given us greatest gift, he said. Now, we give you gift. The shadow stalker's eyes began to glow with a new color, bright gold. One by one, all the other creatures in the clearing joined him, their eyes shifting to the same golden light. Maya felt a warm sensation wash over her tired mind. The shadow stalkers were sharing their strength with her, giving back some of the energy she had spent healing them. They're learning, Dr. Webb said in amazement. Learning to help instead of just being helped. But even with the creature's support, Sarah could see that Maya had reached her limit. Her daughter needed real rest, and they needed to get off this world before other dangers found them. We have to go, Sarah said. Maya needs medical attention, and there might be other threats on this planet. Symphony nodded, understanding. We will remember, always. Little healer gave us back ourselves. As Sarah prepared to lead Maya back to their ship, Echo approached them one more time. The small creature's eyes were now bright silver, and her form had completely stabilized. Echo spoke in a voice like silver bells. Maya, you showed us that being different doesn't mean being broken. We will teach this to others who come after. Maya smiled sleepily. Make sure to teach them that everyone deserves to be loved, no matter what they look like. We will remember, Echo promised. As they walked back through the forest toward the mining station, Sarah realized that Maya had done something unprecedented. Her daughter had not only tamed the deadliest predators in the galaxy, she had healed their souls and reunited their fractured society. But as the first rays of dawn broke through the forest canopy, Sarah spotted something in the sky that made her blood run cold. Ships were approaching Cathara, lots of them. And they weren't flying the peaceful flags of the Galactic Council. They were military vessels, armed for war. Someone had detected their presence on the Forbidden World, and they were coming to investigate. If they found the Shadow Stalkers vulnerable and peaceful, they might try to capture them again. Sarah realized their adventure was far from over. Now they had to protect their new friends from the very people who had damaged them in the first place. Maya looked up at the approaching ships and smiled with determination that seemed far too old for an 8-year-old girl. Don't worry, Mom, she said. Midnight and his family won't let the bad people hurt anyone ever again. In the distance, the shadow stalkers began to sing again. But this time it wasn't a song of healing. It was a song of war. The ships that darkened the sky over Kithara were not explorers or scientists. They were Galactic Council Enforcement Division vessels, built for one purpose: eliminating threats to galactic security. Sarah counted at least 20 warships descending through the atmosphere, their weapons already charging for combat. Maya sat on Midnight's head as they raced back to the mining station. The shadow stalkers moved like liquid shadows through the forest, carrying their human friends with impossible speed and grace. But even their supernatural abilities might not be enough against modern military technology. "They're jamming all communications," Dr. Webb reported, checking his scanner. "No way to contact them and explain what's really happening here." Sarah's heart pounded as she realized the implications. The Enforcement Division had standing orders to shoot first and ask questions later when dealing with apex predator worlds. They wouldn't waste time trying to communicate with creatures they considered mindless killing machines. "Maya, can you ask Midnight to hide?" Sarah called up to her daughter. "Those ships have enough firepower to destroy this entire forest." But Maya shook her head. "He won't hide, Mom. None of them will. They've been hiding for 20 years and they're tired of being afraid." The lead warship reached the mining station first and hovered above the compound, scanning for threats. Sarah could see weapons ports opening along its hull. At this range, a single blast would vaporize everything in the station, including the fuel they desperately needed. Symphony emerged from the forest first, his massive form moving with new confidence. The experiments had made him larger than any normal shadow stalker, and his presence alone made the warship's weapons track toward him. "They're targeting him," Dr. Webb said, watching his scanner. "Weapons are charging." But Symphony didn't attack or flee. Instead, he did something that confused the military computers. He sat down. The massive shape-shifting predator that could tear apart starships with his bare claws simply sat down in the middle of the clearing and waited. More shadow stalkers emerged from the forest and joined him. Midnight gently lowered Maya to the ground and took his place beside Symphony. Soon, dozens of the galaxy's most feared predators were sitting peacefully in the compound, looking up at the warships with eyes that glowed blue and silver and gold. The lead ship's speakers crackled to life. "This is Commander Voss of the Galactic Enforcement Division. All sentient beings in the area, evacuate immediately. We are authorized to use lethal force against hostile entities." Maya walked to the center of the group of shadow stalkers and cupped her hands around her mouth. "We're not hostile," she shouted up at the ships. "We're friends." Sarah ran to her daughter. "Maya, get back! They might shoot!" But Maya stood her ground. "They need to see that we're not dangerous." Commander Voss's voice boomed from the speakers again. "Identify yourselves immediately. Explain your presence on this forbidden world." Dr. Webb stepped forward, his hands raised in surrender. "I'm Dr. Marcus Webb, original research team member. I've been stranded here for 20 years. These people rescued me." "Dr. Webb, you were reported dead. Stand clear of the hostile entities for immediate extraction." "They're not hostile," Dr. Webb called back. "The Shadow Stalkers are intelligent and peaceful. They don't attack unless threatened." A new voice came over the communications system, colder and more official. "This is General Korath. Dr. Webb, our records show the creatures on this world are biological weapons that killed your entire research team. Move away from them immediately." Sarah realized with growing horror that the military had no interest in learning the truth. They had come here to eliminate what they saw as a threat, and they wouldn't listen to explanations. Maya seemed to understand this too. She looked up at Midnight with sad eyes. "They're going to try to hurt you, aren't they?" Midnight made his musical sound, but now it carried notes of ancient pain. He and his people had been hurt by outsiders before, and it was happening again. "Charging primary weapons," announced a mechanical voice from the lead ship. "Eliminate all hostile entities in 30 seconds." Sarah grabbed Maya and tried to pull her toward their ship. "We have to go. Right now." But Maya pulled away from her mother and walked back to the center of the group. "I won't abandon them." The shadow stalkers seemed to understand what was happening. Some began to shift into more aggressive forms, preparing to defend themselves. Others looked ready to scatter into the forest. But Maya held up her hand. "Wait," she said, not to the humans in the ships, but to her shadow stalker friends. "Let me try something first." Maya opened her notebook and tore out a fresh page. She began drawing quickly, her small hands moving with purpose. She drew the warships in the sky, and beneath them, she drew shadow stalkers and humans standing together peacefully. When she finished, she held the drawing up toward the lead ship. "This is what we could be," she shouted. "Friends instead of enemies!" For a moment, nothing happened. The weapons continued charging, and the shadow stalkers prepared for battle. Then Echo stepped forward. The small silver shadow stalker had been the most damaged by the original experiments, but Maya's healing had restored her ability to do something the others couldn't. Echo could project thoughts directly into other minds, even at a distance. Echo's eyes began to glow with intense silver light. She looked up at the warships and shared Maya's drawing directly with every person aboard those vessels. But she didn't just share the image. She shared the emotions behind it. Maya's love for her shadow stalker friends, their pain at being misunderstood, their desire for peace, and their desperate hope that someone would finally listen to them. The effect was immediate and dramatic. "What? What was that?" Commander Voss's voice came over the speakers, but now it sounded confused rather than aggressive. "Sir, we're receiving some kind of telepathic communication," reported another voice. "It appears to be emotional in nature." General Korath's voice cut through the confusion. "Ignore any alien mental manipulation. Continue charging weapons." But Echo wasn't finished. She began projecting more complex images, the memories of the original experiments, the 20 years of isolation and pain, and finally the healing that Maya had brought to their wounded souls. One by one, the voices from the warships began to change. "Sir, these creatures, they're not mindless predators, they're people. General, recommend we pause weapons charging. There are civilians down there. I'm seeing images of torture, sir. Medical experiments. What exactly happened on this world?" General Korath's voice became angry. "Those creatures are classified as extreme threats to galactic security. All personnel will follow orders without question." But Maya wasn't giving up. She began to sing the same lullaby she had used to heal Echo, and the shadow stalkers joined her. Their voices created a harmony that carried across the battlefield, reaching the hearts of every soldier in the sky. Symphony added his own voice to the song, speaking in his broken but clear words. "We are not monsters. We are children who want to go home." The singing continued for several minutes, with Maya conducting a choir of the galaxy's most feared predators in a song about hope and healing and forgiveness. Finally, Commander Voss's voice returned to the speakers. But now it was quiet and thoughtful. "General, I'm seeing families down there, parents and children who've been separated for decades. These aren't weapons, they're refugees." "Commander, you will follow orders or face court-martial," General Korath replied. "With respect, sir, my orders are to protect galactic citizens from threats. I don't see any threats down there. I see victims who need our help." More voices joined the rebellion against General Korath's orders. "Sir, my sensors show no hostile intent from any of the creatures." "General, recommend immediate medical assistance for the civilians below." "Those children were tortured, sir." "We can't attack them." General Korath's voice became desperate. "Those creatures killed an entire research team. They're too dangerous to be allowed to live." Dr. Webb stepped forward again. "General, I was part of that research team." The Shadow Stalkers only attacked after we tortured their young. They were defending their children from us. Maya added her small voice to the conversation. They're not dangerous when people are nice to them. They just want to be loved. There was a long silence from the warships. Sarah could imagine the debates happening aboard those vessels as soldiers struggled between their orders and their consciences. Finally, a new voice came over the speakers. It was young and female, probably a junior officer finding her courage. General, I volunteer to go down there and assess the situation personally. Lieutenant Chen, you will remain at your station, General Korath ordered. But the rebellion was spreading. More voices joined in. I volunteer to accompany Lieutenant Chen. Sir, request permission to provide medical aid to the civilians below. General, these creatures saved human lives. They deserve our protection, not our weapons. Maya smiled up at the ships and waved. You can come down! They won't hurt you! The first landing craft separated from the fleet and descended slowly toward the compound. Sarah could see soldiers aboard, but their weapons were holstered. They came as healers, not killers. Lieutenant Chen was indeed young, probably not much older than Sarah herself. She stepped out of the landing craft with a medical kit in her hands and approached the group carefully. Midnight lowered his massive head so Lieutenant Chen could see his gentle blue eyes. The soldier looked into those eyes and saw intelligence, kindness, and hope. My God, she whispered, they really are people. More landing craft arrived, bringing doctors and supplies instead of weapons. The soldiers worked alongside Dr. Webb to provide medical care for both the humans and the Shadow Stalkers who still bore scars from their long ordeal. Maya introduced each Shadow Stalker to the soldiers, telling their stories and explaining their unique personalities. Soon, hardened military personnel were sitting in circles listening to 8-year-old girl explain the emotional needs of apex predators. But General Korath wasn't finished. His flagship remained in orbit, its weapons still charged. All forces return to your ships immediately. We have reports of additional hostile entities approaching from deep space. Sarah looked up at the sky and saw what the general was talking about. More ships were arriving at Kythera, but these weren't military vessels. They were civilian transports and scientific research ships from across the galaxy. Word is spreading, Dr. Webb explained. Echo's telepathic broadcast didn't just reach our ships. It went out across the entire galactic communication network. Everyone knows about this world now. The civilian ships landed in fields around the mining station, bringing xenobiologists, diplomats, journalists, and families who had lost loved ones to anti-predator operations. They came to see the impossible sight of humans and apex predators living in harmony. Maya found herself the center of galactic attention as news crews recorded her interactions with the Shadow Stalkers. But she handled the fame with the same innocent grace she brought to everything else. They're not scary once you get to know them, she told a reporter from the Galactic News Network. They just needed someone to listen. General Korath made one final attempt to maintain control of the situation. This world remains under military quarantine. All civilian vessels will withdraw immediately. But he was outnumbered now by peaceful ships and peaceful intentions. The Galactic Council itself had dispatched diplomats to negotiate a new status for Kythera and its inhabitants. Commander Voss's voice came over the speakers one last time. General, I am formally refusing to follow your orders. These people are under my protection. More commanders joined the mutiny, declaring their intention to protect rather than destroy. General Korath's ship retreated to deep space, but the rest of the fleet remained to help establish peaceful contact between humans and Shadow Stalkers. As the sun set on Kythera for the second time since Maya's arrival, she sat with Midnight and Echo on a hill overlooking the compound. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species moved through the area below, setting up research stations, medical facilities, and diplomatic quarters. You did it, Sarah told her daughter. You changed the galaxy. Maya shrugged. I just made friends. That's not hard. But Sarah knew it was much more than that. Her 8-year-old daughter had used the most human of all abilities, the capacity for empathy and love, to bridge a gap that technology and force never could. Dr. Webb joined them on the hill, looking healthier than he had in years. The Galactic Council is officially reclassifying Kithara as a protected world. The Shadow Stalkers will be recognized as a sentient species with full rights. What about the ones who were hurt? Maya asked. They'll receive the best medical care in the galaxy and counseling to help them heal completely. Echo nuzzled Maya gently. You gave us our voices back, she said in her silver bell voice. Now we can tell our own stories. Symphony approached the group, his shape now completely stable and his eyes bright blue. Little healer, he said, his speech improving daily, you showed us that different does not mean dangerous. Maya nodded seriously. And you showed me that being big and scary on the outside doesn't mean you're not gentle on the inside. Midnight made his musical sound, and Maya understood. He says thank you for helping him find his family again. As night fell, more shadow stalkers emerged from the forest. But these weren't the damaged ones or the peaceful ones Maya had already met. These were wild shadow stalkers from deep in the forests, coming to see the small human who had healed their wounded kin. Maya greeted each new arrival with the same fearless kindness she had shown from the beginning. Soon she had dozens of apex predators gathered around her, all listening as she told stories and shared drawings from her notebook. She's creating a new form of interspecies communication, Dr. Webb observed, using art and narrative to bridge the gap between vastly different forms of consciousness. Sarah watched her daughter teaching a creature the size of a building how to appreciate a stick figure drawing and realized something profound had happened. Maya hadn't just tamed the deadliest predators in the galaxy. She had proven that humans' greatest strength wasn't technology or violence, but their ability to love the unlovable and befriend the unbefriendable. Months later, Kithara had become the most peaceful world in the galaxy. Shadowstalkers worked alongside human researchers to unlock the secrets of their remarkable abilities. The damaged ones had been healed and welcomed back into their communities. And at the center of it all was a small human girl who rode apex predators like they were ponies and treated galactic diplomacy like a playground game. Maya Chen became known across the galaxy as the Child Ambassador, the little girl who had proven that sometimes the smallest person could create the biggest changes. But to her friends on Kithara, she was simply Maya, the human who had shown them that they deserved to be loved. And in the evenings, when the research stations grew quiet and the diplomatic meetings ended, Maya would climb onto Midnight's back and ride through the glowing forests of Kithara, followed by a parade of the galaxy's most magnificent predators who had learned that sometimes the best way to be strong was to be gentle. The little human girl had not only tamed the deadliest predators in the galaxy, she had taught them, and the rest of the universe, that love was the most powerful force in existence. Even apex predators couldn't resist its call.